Hello everyone, and welcome to Sigil Sanctum. Today we're diving deep into Lilith, a misunderstood and deeply complex primordial feminine force. Although this ancient figure has gained recent popularity thanks to shows like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and various horror films, her story is much older and more nuanced than popular culture suggests. Before we continue, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. Known as the first woman, Adam's first wife, and the mother of demons, Lilith is far more than the vengeful night spirit most people imagine. She represents something profound about feminine power, independence, and spiritual sovereignty that challenges everything we think we know about biblical mythology. What makes her so misunderstood? What are her true attributes beyond the demon? And what do modern spiritual encounters with Lilith actually reveal about her nature? Join us as we uncover all the mysteries and secrets of the first rebel, the woman who refused to submit. To understand Lilith's true nature, we need to trace her roots through ancient texts and oral traditions that span thousands of years. The earliest references to Lilith appear in Mesopotamian texts dating back to 2400 BCE, where she's mentioned as one of a class of storm demons called Lilithchu. These ancient Sumerian and Babylonian texts describe her not as an individual entity, but as part of a group of wind spirits associated with desolation and the untamed wilderness. The name itself is fascinating in Hebrew. Lilith derives from the root lil, meaning night, but it also connects to the Akkadian lilku, which refers to a type of storm demon. This linguistic evolution reveals how her identity transformed across cultures and centuries, accumulating layers of meaning and interpretation. Her most famous origin story comes from the alphabet of Ben Sira, a medieval Jewish text from the 8th-10th centuries that presents one of the most detailed accounts of her relationship with Adam. According to this tradition, Lilith was created simultaneously with Adam from the same earth, not from his rib like Eve. This detail is crucial because it establishes her as Adam's equal, not his subordinate. When Adam demanded she lie beneath him during intimacy, Lilith refused, arguing that since they were both created from dust, neither should dominate the other. When Adam wouldn't yield, Lilith spoke the ineffable name of God and flew away from Eden. If you're finding this deep dive into ancient mysteries fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more explorations into misunderstood spiritual figures. But the story doesn't end there. The text continues that 3 angels, Senoi, Sanzuno, and Samanjaloth, were sent to retrieve her. They found her by the Red Sea, where she had begun consorting with demons and giving birth to hundreds of demonic children daily. When the angels threatened to kill 100 of her children each day if she didn't return, Lilith refused but made a counteroffer she would have power over newborn children, but would retreat when confronted with the names of the 3 angels. In the Talmud and other Jewish mystical texts, Lilith holds a complex and often contradictory position. She's described as having dominion over newborns and pregnant women, appearing as a dangerous force during childbirth. Yet she's also presented as a figure of knowledge and independence who possessed divine wisdom. The Zohar, the foundational work of Kabbalah, presents her as Adam's first wife who understood the sacred mysteries and refused to be subjugated to patriarchal control. Medieval Jewish folklore expanded her mythology significantly. She was said to visit men in their dreams, seducing them and stealing their seed to create more demonic offspring. Yet even these accounts hint at her role as a teacher of hidden knowledge, particularly regarding sexuality and the integration of shadow aspects of the self. What's remarkable is how consistently ancient sources describe her not as inherently evil, but as a figure who chose autonomy over submission, a choice that was then demonized by patriarchal interpretations. The transformation of her story from that of an equal partner to a demonic threat reveals more about the societies that told these tales than about Lilith herself. Ancient texts provide vivid and often contradictory descriptions of Lilith's appearance, but certain elements remain consistent across cultures and time periods. She's consistently portrayed as breathtakingly beautiful, yet otherworldly in her presence, possessing a beauty that transcends human understanding while carrying an undeniable sense of power and danger. Her most frequently described feature is her long, flowing hair, often depicted as red, like fire, or dark as the night sky, that moves as if alive with its own energy. Medieval texts describe her hair as reaching to her feet, flowing like water or wind, never quite still. This hair is said to be one of her most powerful features, capable of entrancing viewers and serving as a conduit for her magical abilities. Her eyes are consistently described as deep and penetrating, holding ancient wisdom and an intensity that can both mesmerize and unsettle those who meet her gaze. Some accounts describe them as changing color, sometimes dark as midnight, other times burning like amber or glowing with an inner fire. Those who claim to have encountered her describe feeling as if she can see directly into their soul, reading their deepest desires and hidden shames with a single glance. Most traditions describe her as having bird-like feet or talons, connecting her to her ability to fly and her dominion over the night sky. Some texts mention wings, great dark wings, like those of an owl or raven, that allow her to travel between realms and appear wherever she chooses. These avian features link her to ancient goddess traditions, where birds were symbols of divine, feminine power and the ability to traverse between worlds. She's often depicted wearing flowing robes that seem to move with their own wind, or appearing nude, symbolizing her rejection of societal constraints and her connection to primal, unashamed femininity. Some descriptions include jewelry, particularly earrings, necklaces, or circlets that seem to capture and reflect light in impossible ways, suggesting her connection to both earthly beauty and otherworldly power. What's particularly interesting is how her presence is announced and felt by those who encounter her. Modern practitioners and those who report spiritual experiences with Lilith describe feeling a sudden shift in atmospheric pressure, as if the air itself becomes charged with electricity. Many report a sense of being watched or evaluated, often accompanied by the sound of wings in still air or a subtle rustling that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. Unlike typical demonic manifestations that bring fear, many report that Lilith's presence feels powerful, but not necessarily threatening, more like standing before a force of nature. There's often a sense of being in the presence of something ancient and vast. The protocols for interaction with Lilith are unique among spiritual entities and reflect her nature as a being who demands respect rather than submission. She responds to directness, honesty, and recognition of her sovereignty rather than attempts at commanding or controlling her. Those who approach her with genuine intent, clear boundaries, and acknowledgement of her power report more positive encounters than those who come seeking to bargain, manipulate, or demonstrate their own authority. Lilith's abilities extend far beyond the typical demon archetype that popular culture has assigned to her. Her most notable and fundamental power is her mastery over the liminal spaces, the thresholds between worlds, states of consciousness, and phases of life. She governs transitions, particularly those related to feminine power, sexual awakening, and the integration of shadow aspects of the self. She's renowned as a dream teacher and vision guide, appearing to individuals during sleep to impart knowledge about shadow work, repressed desires, and hidden aspects of the self that require integration. Many practitioners report that Lilith helps them access memories, talents, and aspects of their personality that have been suppressed due to social conditioning or trauma. Her dream teachings often involve symbolic imagery that helps individuals understand their own psyche and reclaim parts of themselves they've been taught to fear or reject. Her dominion over sexuality is perhaps her most misunderstood aspect, rather than being about temptation in the corrupting sense that traditional interpretations suggest. Her sexual teachings focus on authentic expression and the integration of sexual energy as spiritual power. She teaches the sacred nature of desire, the importance of consent and equality in intimate relationships, and helps individuals break free from shame-based conditioning around sexuality that prevents them from experiencing wholeness. Lilith is also recognized as a powerful protector of women and children, particularly those who are vulnerable, oppressed, or in situations where they lack agency. Contrary to popular belief about her harming infants, many modern practitioners work with her specifically for protection during pregnancy and childbirth. Viewing her as a fierce guardian who stands against those who would harm the innocent, her protective energy is particularly strong for women escaping abusive relationships or situations where they're being controlled or diminished. She possesses remarkable abilities in the realm of justice and retribution, but not in the vengeful sense often portrayed. Instead, she helps reveal truth, expose deception, and ensure that actions have appropriate consequences. Many report that calling upon Lilith's energy helps bring hidden manipulations to light and provides the strength needed to confront difficult truths about relationships, situations, or their own behavior. Her mastery over transformation and shapeshifting is legendary, allowing her to appear in whatever form is most appropriate for her purpose. This isn't merely physical transformation, but represents her ability to adapt her teaching methods to what each individual needs most. She might appear as a nurturing mother figure to someone needing self-compassion, her daughters, and spiritual offspring who assist in her work across the world. These entities are often described as teachers and guides rather than malevolent spirits, each specializing in different aspects of shadow work, empowerment, and spiritual development. They help individuals navigate their own transformation processes and provide support during difficult periods of growth and change. Perhaps most significantly, Lilith grants the gift of saying no, the power to establish boundaries, reject harmful situations, and choose autonomy even when it comes at great personal cost. This includes the ability to recognize manipulation, the strength to walk away from situations that diminish one's spirit, and the wisdom to distinguish between genuine love and possessive control. Her knowledge extends to herbalism, natural healing, and the magical properties of plants, particularly those associated with women's health, fertility, and protection. Many practitioners work with her to understand plant medicine and natural healing methods that have been suppressed or forgotten. Finally, Lilith possesses the ability to help individuals reclaim their voice, literally and metaphorically. She teaches the power of speaking truth, the importance of expressing one's authentic self, and the courage required to voice unpopular opinions when they align with one's deepest values, beyond her literal mythological role. Lilith represents the archetypal, rebellious feminine, the aspect of the feminine psyche that refuses to be diminished, controlled, or shamed into conformity. She embodies what Carl Jung would recognize as the shadow side of the Great Mother archetype, not as a destructive force, but as the fierce protector who will not compromise her essence for acceptance or safety. In psychological terms, Lilith represents the parts of ourselves, particularly for women, but increasingly for all individuals in modern society that have been labeled as too much, too demanding, inappropriate, or selfish when they're actually expressions of healthy self-regard and boundary setting. She's the inner voice that questions why we should make ourselves smaller, quieter, or more agreeable to make others comfortable, even when doing so compromises our integrity or well-being. From a Jungian perspective, Lilith represents the anima. In its untamed form, the feminine aspect of the psyche that connects us to intuition, emotion, and the unconscious realms. However, unlike passive or receptive feminine archetypes, Lilith embodies active feminine energy that creates, destroys, and transforms according to its own wisdom rather than external expectations. In the context of spiritual development and individuation, Lilith represents the necessary dissolution of false personas and the courage required to face our authentic selves, even when that authentic self doesn't align with what others want or expect from us. She teaches that true spiritual growth sometimes requires us to reject the roles others have assigned to us and to stand alone in our truth, accepting the isolation that sometimes comes with authenticity. Her association with the night and darkness connects her to the unconscious mind, the hidden aspects of reality, and the wisdom that can only be accessed when we're willing to venture into psychological territories that others fear to explore. She represents the courage required for genuine shadow work, the process of integrating rejected aspects of ourselves rather than projecting them onto others. The serpent energy often associated with Lilith connects her to ancient wisdom traditions, where the serpent represented knowledge, transformation, and the kundalini energy that drives spiritual awakening. Her serpentine aspect reminds us that growth often requires shedding old skins, leaving behind identities that no longer serve our highest good. However, working with Lilith's energy requires significant discernment and emotional maturity. The shadow she represents can become destructive if not integrated wisely, leading to rebelliousness for its own sake, manipulation disguised as empowerment, or the rejection of all authority and structure, even when they serve legitimate purposes. She warns us about the crucial difference between healthy rebellion against genuine oppression and self-destructive defiance that stems from unhealed wounds. Lilith also represents the importance of conscious choice in spiritual and personal development. Unlike archetypal figures who represent unconscious forces, Lilith embodies conscious rebellion, the deliberate choice to prioritize authenticity over approval, even when we understand the potential consequences of that choice. Recent portrayals of Lilith in contemporary media have brought her into mainstream consciousness, though often through filters that reflect modern anxieties about feminine power, while simultaneously attempting to reclaim her story from centuries of demonization. The most notable recent portrayal appears in Netflix's chilling adventures of Sabrina, where Lilith appears as Madame Satan, a complex character who serves as both antagonist and unlikely mentor to the teenage witch, Sabrina Spellman. This series deserves significant credit for presenting Lilith as far more than a simple villain or demonic temptress. She's portrayed as intelligent, strategically minded, and driven by her own agenda rather than merely serving as a minion to male demonic forces. The show explores her complex relationship with the Dark Lord, revealing her as someone who has served faithfully for millennia while being consistently overlooked and undervalued. A dynamic that many viewers recognize as reflecting real-world patterns of how women's contributions are often minimized or ignored. What's particularly fascinating is how the series depicts her relationship with Sabrina Spellman. Despite their adversarial dynamic, there's an unmistakable undercurrent of mentorship and recognition. Lilith sees potential in Sabrina that reminds her of her own refusal to submit to unjust authority, creating a complex dynamic between the ancient rebel and the young witch who's discovering her own power. Their interactions often feel like a masterclass in recognizing and developing personal sovereignty. The show brilliantly explores themes of feminine rage and the price women pay for claiming power in patriarchal systems, both supernatural and mundane. Lilith's character arc involves her struggle to gain recognition for her contributions, intelligence, and leadership abilities, while being consistently passed over in favor of male figures who possessed less experience and wisdom. This dynamic resonates powerfully with contemporary audiences who recognize similar patterns in workplaces, religious institutions, and political systems. The series also touches on the complexity of feminine relationships under patriarchal power. Structures. The tension between Lilith and Sabrina reflects how women are often pitted against each other in systems where power is scarce and must be competed for rather than shared. Yet the show also demonstrates how these same women can become allies when they recognize their common interests and shared experiences of marginalization. However, even this relatively sympathetic portrayal operates within certain constraints of the horror genre and mainstream entertainment that prevent it from fully capturing the complexity of how modern practitioners actually experience Lilith's energy. The show still presents her primarily through a lens of danger, manipulation, and supernatural threat, which creates compelling television but doesn't fully represent the healing, teaching, and empowerment aspects that characterize most contemporary spiritual encounters with her. The portrayal also reflects contemporary culture's ongoing struggle with how to represent powerful feminine figures without falling into either demonization or sanitization. The character walks a careful line between being threatening enough to serve as an antagonist, while being sympathetic enough that audiences can understand and even root for her motivations. What's missing from most media portrayals, including this one, is the profound healing and teaching aspect that characterizes authentic spiritual work with Lilith. The real Lilith, as experienced by contemporary practitioners, is far more likely to appear as a wise teacher who challenges your assumptions and helps you reclaim lost parts of yourself than as a seductive demon seeking to corrupt or control. Modern spiritual encounters with Lilith often involve her appearing during periods of major life transition, particularly when someone is breaking free from controlling relationships, discovering their authentic voice, or learning to establish healthy boundaries. These experiences are typically characterized by feelings of empowerment, clarity, and the courage to make necessary but difficult changes, rather than the fear and confusion associated with malevolent spiritual encounters. Many practitioners report that working with Lilith's energy helps them recognize and heal from spiritual, emotional, or sexual trauma, particularly trauma that involves powerlessness, shame, or the suppression of natural desires and needs. Her energy seems particularly helpful for individuals who have been taught to prioritize others' comfort over their own well-being, or who struggle with guilt about asserting their own needs and boundaries. Lilith's story ultimately reflects humanity's complex and often troubled relationship with authentic power, particularly feminine power, and the courage required to live according to our deepest truths rather than others' expectations. She represents the part of us that instinctively knows when something is wrong, even when everyone around us insists we should accept it, endure it, or be grateful for it. Her mythology speaks to a universal human experience, the moment when we must choose between being accepted and being authentic, between safety and sovereignty, between approval and integrity. Like Lilith, we all face situations where we must decide whether to submit to expectations that diminish our spirit or to stand alone in our truth, accepting whatever consequences that choice might bring. The persistent demonization of Lilith throughout history mirrors how societies often respond to individuals who refuse to be controlled, silenced, or reduced to roles that serve others' needs rather than their own authentic expression. Her story reminds us that what we're taught to fear is often precisely what we most need to reclaim our own power, voice, and capacity for self-determination. Working with Lilith's energy, whether through formal spiritual practice or simply embracing the qualities she represents, isn't about rebellion for its own sake or rejecting all authority and structure. Instead, it's about developing the discernment to recognize when something truly serves our highest good and the courage to act on that knowledge, even when doing so requires us to disappoint others or stand apart from the crowd. Her story teaches us that true spiritual development sometimes requires us to say no to what others want from us so that we can say yes to what our deepest self knows to be true. This isn't selfishness, it's the recognition that we cannot authentically serve others or contribute meaningfully to the world when we're operating from a false self that exists primarily to gain approval or avoid conflict. If you're curious about exploring the deeper mysteries of misunderstood spiritual figures like Lilith, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Sigil Sanctum. We're dedicated to uncovering the authentic stories behind the entities and archetypes that have been distorted by fear, misunderstanding, and the agendas of those who benefit from keeping us disconnected from our own power. In our upcoming videos, we'll continue exploring other powerful figures who have been misrepresented throughout history, helping you separate truth from propaganda in the spiritual realm and reclaim the wisdom that rightfully belongs to all of us. Drop a comment below, sharing your thoughts on Lilith's true nature, and let me know which misunderstood spiritual figure you'd like us to explore next. Your engagement helps this content reach others who are ready to look beyond surface-level interpretations and discover the profound teachings hidden within ancient wisdom. Until next time, remember, sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from those who were brave enough to say no when everyone else was saying yes. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the mysteries of the first rebel.